just a person.
One last struggle against the skies was fought in the penultimate episode, The Clouded Mountain. In the end, Metatron's unfair rule over the land of the dead was overthrown, allowing all the imprisoned ghosts to escape and merge with the living. Thanks to Asriel and Maurice's sacrifice, Metatron was also destroyed, thus obscuring the distinction between good and evil in this universe. Finally, Will chopped through a crystal Q that had fallen to ground using the not-so-subtle knife. The Authority, also referred to as the First Angel, was there. Will's actions liberated the Authority, which then eliminated the final vestige of religious intolerance this world still harbored, except for one extremely devout follower, whom we'll discuss momentarily. The Botanic Garden, the final episode of his Dark Materials, which turns out to be significantly less action-packed, but no less significant than the one that came before, ushers in the book's eventual conclusion. Lyra and Will's daemons haven't been seen since the events of Episode 7 because they're upset with Lyra for how she treated them. Lyra also assumes that her mother, Mrs. Coulter, and Asriel are also dead as a result of the death of the Golden Monkey. Pan and Kerjava are seen observing from a distance, believing that their humans are now at last secure. That isn't really the case, though, since Father Gomes is still set on killing Eve as Lyra, despite the fact that he no longer believes in the existence of angels. Lyra decides to pursue the alethiometer, which leads her to Mary, who discloses that dust and straff are actually the same substance. This demonstrates that the religious extremist's assertion that dust is sin was false. The issue right now is that this reality is leaking dust, which has a dangerous effect on the multiverse as a whole. The task of finding a means to salvage what's left of dust and return it to this world falls to Lyra at that point. Pan isn't much help, though, as he continues to ignore her, despite the fact that she abused his confidence earlier in the season. The following day, Lyra is feeling lonely and in love with Will, so when they end themselves in the water together, she wants to get intimate with him. When Father Gomes emerges in the distance prepared to shoot Lyra, things become a little dicey. Conveniently, fortunately, the angel Balthamos shows up just in time to destroy Gomes' daemon and subsequently Gomes himself, putting an end to the Magisterium. Despite everything, Lyra and Will make out in order to fulfill the love of Eve prophecy that will ultimately bring about world peace. The dust begins to slow down in front of Seraphina, who is the first to perceive its effect. Seraphina assists in persuading the daemons to lastly reconnect with Lyra. A happy ending isn't quite possible, though, because dust is still able to escape through the numerous windows that Will and the other prior knife-bearers made. There is only one window that may be left open as long as people are mindful and creative, according to Angel Zephania. Sincerely, this concert is insane. While they must keep the gateway to the land of the dead open, so that deceased souls can pass through, Will is aware that he must return to his own world. That implies that these two new lovers must split up and give up their affection for one another in order to promote cosmic harmony. Will sends Mary back to her realm after giving them one final kiss before leaving in a whirlwind of dust, but not before they make a pact to meet up on a particular bench that is present in both of their realities once a year. They won't actually be together, but they will constantly be aware that the other is with them somewhere else in the larger multiverse. A closing title card reveals that Will and Lyra both upheld their end of the bargain and continued to share their Oxford bench once a year until their death. They led fulfilling lives in their respective worlds after keeping their vow to one another. Will studied medicine and afterwards worked as a successful surgeon. Will has always been skilled with a knife. The card reads, Lyra continued her education at St. Sophia's College in Oxford, where she was once more taught how to read the alethiometer. If it's any help, Lyra lost that talent since it was associated with the innocence of her youth, a period that came to an end when she kissed Will. We look through Philip Pullman's source material to see where Lyra's voyage may go from here because, happily, Lyra was able to relearn how to read the alethiometer via study, which would come in useful one day, when Lyra and Pan would go on to have a further great adventure. Then perhaps this isn't really the end after all.